So in this debate over what would be the effect of a corporate tax cut on the returns to labor and capital, the view that if capital is elastically supplied, that the benefits are going to workers are going to exceed the tax cut is pretty well grounded in the underlying theory. Now remember, that's a long run answer. It's not a short run answer. In the short run, what would happen? Well, in the short run, if capital was fixed, all the benefits would go to capital, just like they did just like capital got its share of the productivity improvement. They would only gradually be competed over to labor in this simple model. Yes?
For example, the government revenue wouldn't go down by 4%. A would rise, right? Or you're assuming K is fixed in the short term.
In the short term, K is fixed, right? So when K is fixed in the short term, the government taxes capital less, the marginal product capital stays exactly where it was. And since the marginal product capital is where it is, the pre-tax price of capital stays at 2. Government now gets 49% of 2, so that means capital owners get 51% of 2. Gradually now, though, because capital owners are now getting 102 rather than 100, they're going to increase the capital stock. And as they increase the capital stock, the rental price of capital is going to come down. So the government is now not going to get 49% of 2. They're going to get 49% of a number less than 2. Right? That's what's going to happen as the price of capital. Yes?
You said even if the supply of labor is elastic as well, it would be better to...
Right, because all this is per unit labor in equilibrium. So reducing labor doesn't kind of offset what's happening here, because as you cut back labor, that just cuts back capital even further. It doesn't prevent capital from going down, right? Because if labor is reduced, because you have to get K over L to its long run equilibrium level, capital is falling right along with it. Right, if one of them's this is basically the thing. It's like when supply, let me give you the other analogy that I think makes it clear. It's like when you have supply and demand in a market, right? If you make supply perfectly elastic, it doesn't matter how elastic demand is. Demanders pay the entire tax no matter how elastic demand is. It affects how much quantity goes down, but it doesn't affect a fraction of the tax that they pay. And that's kind of the point that happens here. Once you make one of the factors perfectly elastic, then the other one has to pay everything. And not only pay the tax, they have to pay the distortion too, because the factor that's perfectly elastic won't pay for anything. It's just like in this model, the split between labor and the split between buyers and sellers in the standard tax problem depends on both elasticities, unless one of them's infinite. Because if one of them's infinite, it doesn't matter how elastic you are, you're still paying 100% of the tax. It's the same thing that's going on here. Once I make capital perfectly elastic, no matter what, labor can't run fast enough to get away. That's what's happening here, right? The buyers, they can try to run, but capital is always going to outrun, suppliers are always going to outrun them in this world. That's kind of what happens over here too. So now if you make one of them less than perfectly elastic, then the elasticity of the other one will still matter. Okay. It's basically the same logic that's happening here. All right. Yes. Any questions that people? That's kind of like Malthus's thing. Malthus's view. Even if he got more land, it doesn't matter. Workers are going to just keep growing and growing and growing until they're just as poor as they ever were. Yes.
What kind of things would prevent the initial surplus to the capital owner going to real wage? So that area.
You'd have to have something that, remember, one way to think about it is C of W and R and 1 has to be equal to 1 if you express them in real terms, right? In a model like this, that is the cost of producing a unit of output has to be this. And therefore, if you kind of raise this, then you got to lower that. I mean, you can't you can't do one without the other in this kind of fixed technology world. And you know, I mean, you need some kind of reason why capital is upward sloping or something like that.